Question: an actuary is asked to advise both the trustees of a pension scheme and the sponsor employer on a proposed change to funding contributions and investment strategy. Explain the professional standards the actuary must apply, including conflicts of interest and communication. Your answer must refer to treating customers fairly and the actuarial control cycle supporting elements. 8 marks. Section 1. Interpretation and key points. Quick awareness check. The dual client trap. Trustees want maximum security, high funding. Sponsors want minimum cost, low funding. You cannot serve two masters without strict protocols. The Actuaries Code. This isn't just be nice, it's a legal and professional requirement for integrity and impartiality. TCF beyond insurance. While treating customers fairly is often an insurance term, the principle applies to pension members who have no say in the negotiation. Control cycle support. Professionalism is the outer ring that keeps the technical math from being abused. Section 2. Logic breakdown. 1. Conflict of interest, impartiality. This is the biggest hurdle. The Actuaries Code requires that any conflict be identified, disclosed, and managed. If the conflict is unresolvable, which it often is when setting funding levels, the actuary must resign from one side to maintain impartiality. 2. The actuarial control cycle supporting elements. The cycle isn't just math, it is supported by professionalism and the business environment. This means the actuary must consider the legal duties of the trustees, fiduciary duty, and the financial health of the sponsor, solvency. 3. Communication standards. Advice must be clear, appropriate, and timely. It must explain uncertainty. If an actuary suggests a risky investment strategy to lower contributions, they must clearly explain the risk of the pension scheme failing if that strategy goes wrong. 4. Treating customers fairly, TCF. In a pension context, customers are the scheme members. They are the vulnerable party with information asymmetry. TCF dictates that the actuary must ensure the members' reasonable expectations of receiving their pension are not compromised by a deal that favors the sponsor's bank balance. 5. Professional responsibility. The actuary must act with integrity. This means not data mining or using aggressive assumptions to reach a predetermined result that the sponsor wants. Section 3. High distinction model answer. Advising both a pension scheme's trustees and the sponsoring employer introduces a significant conflict of interest, as their objectives are fundamentally misaligned. The trustees have a fiduciary duty to maximize member security through higher funding and lower risk investments, whereas the sponsor seeks to minimize contributions to protect corporate liquidity. Under the Actuaries Code, the actuary must identify, disclose, and manage this conflict. If the conflict compromises the actuary's ability to provide impartial advice, professional standards mandate withdrawal from one or both appointments to preserve the integrity of the advice. The actuarial control cycle supporting elements, specifically professionalism and the business environment, require the actuary to look beyond the numerical valuation. Professionalism dictates that the actuary must apply competence and care, ensuring that the assumptions used for funding are prudent and not skewed to favor the sponsor's financial position. Furthermore, the actuary must account for the wider business environment, such as the sponsor's covenant strength, the ability to pay, ensuring that any change in investment strategy does not leave the scheme overly exposed to a sponsor default. Communication is critical in this dual client scenario. Professional standards require that advice is presented clearly, highlighting the limitations and uncertainties of the funding model. The actuary has a responsibility to ensure that both parties understand the downside risk of the proposed strategy. Failing to communicate the potential for a funding deficit during market stress would be a breach of the code, as it prevents the trustees from making an informed decision on behalf of the members. Finally, the principle of treating customers fairly, TCF, must be applied to the scheme members who are the ultimate customers of the actuarial advice. Because members are not part of the negotiation and suffer from significant information asymmetry, the actuary must act as a guardian of their interests. This means ensuring that the proposed funding and investment changes do not result in foreseeable harm to members' benefits. Professional judgment requires the actuary to ensure that the final agreement reflects a fair balance that protects the long-term sustainability of the scheme, rather than a short-term compromise for commercial convenience.